The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Joining me in that studio is the Sheriff. Good morning.
Good morning. It's a beautiful day in Steuben County, Frank.
It always is. If you don't mind, I've got to catch up. I've got to catch up on a few comments here from viewers.
No worries.
Performance reviews can be a positive thing. When I would get mine, they would let me identify something I wanted to improve, and they would help me to improve in that area. Of course, like I mentioned, in the private sector, it's very common at performance reviews.
In the public sector also.
Yeah, right. And just not this way, I guess. I don't know. It depends on who sends the email. Fred writes in, the media has alerted the workers to check your email. Yeah, they might have given away that. No Trump remorse here, Frank. Even if I don't fully understand why Trump is doing certain things, I believe that he and his administration are sincerely trying to help our country. And then there's the fact that he drives the left crazy, and that's entertaining. Well, thank you, viewer. And finally, it's kind of sad you have a government job and you can't figure out how to answer that email. See, that's what's interesting, because people are saying it's chaos because they don't know what to do. Seems pretty simple what to do. Yeah. Respond to the email.
Well, and where's their supervisors?
Right.
Where's the folks that are setting the policy?
Yep, absolutely. But that's not why you're here.
No.
So I've got a couple questions, and I
do want to point out that every deputy and correction officer has a yearly annual performance evaluation conducted by their first and second line supervisors at Steuben County.
Okay, well, good, thank you. And we're gonna talk about the corrections officers, because that's obviously the big story. But last week we reported what LEA was saying. I was wondering if you could give us any updates on what is going on with the county.
I don't think anybody really knows what's going on with the county. You know, that I saw that statement, and the day after the decision came out from the Supreme Court,
right?
They filed a notice of appeal. The county did at that moment in time.
Okay.
The very next day, and then I was told, well, we filed it to protect our ability to appeal, but we're not going to appeal.
Okay.
And so this has been ongoing since November. Who knows how much more money they want to waste? I don't know, but I think there's a segment of that legislature and the administration that have kind of lost their way and are no longer serving their constituents, are only worried about their own personal power.
Yeah.
And we'll leave it at that.
Well, and I do think it's interesting because, petition season started.
Yes.
It'll be interesting to see if this leads to any primaries, if it leads to any kind of changes in the trajectory, if you will, because that's why I was surprised by the appeal vote itself, because I didn't think too many people would want to be on record in an election.
Right.
Year.
And that was a surprise.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've heard of several races across the county where people are stepping up and saying we need to correct the trajectory of the Steuben County legislature, and are running, and some are running against people that are longtime incumbents.
Right.
And I'm excited to see one of the close ones is in the town of Irwin, I believe. I
saw that. Yep.
There's going to be a primary, and there's a stark division. The voters in Irwin have a really wide division of candidates there to vote for. You've got the incumbent, who is, I think, largely resting on his name, and then you've got a challenger who's come up who has a really great American-made story. He's like the American dream come true in the way that he's lived his life and fashioned his political and public persona. So it's going to be a pretty stark contrast for the voters in the town of Irwin.
And it's going to be interesting to see people excited about local races.
It is.
That's what
it is.
I couldn't believe the chatter already that I get either on the program or just on the street, because that's not typical in a year like this year.
Well, and again, I think that's a lot what led to the dysfunction in the county government, was that no one was paying attention.
Yeah.
And no one really cared until they started doing these incredibly irrational moves that people suddenly went, whoa, what's going on here, and why don't we know about this?
Well,
because
isn't it awesome?
All behind closed doors.
Yeah, that's what the judge found, the executive session being misused.
Yes.
So we even if we wanted to know, we couldn't know.
Yeah, even if I want to know, I can't.
Well, yeah, that's true. And we'll move on from that topic. But you had mentioned the cost. What ballpark? What was the cost at for those that weren't paying attention?
Well, we did. We tallied it all up as of September, but then there's been more costs since then. So we're at $250,000 right now, all in.
For taxpayers.
Yes.
Okay.
Taxpayer money to try and persecute me.
I can't believe this is ongoing. I can't believe we're still talking about this.
I know. It's insane.
It's
just
what a wild ride
insane.
for you. But the major story, obviously, and for the right reason,
Yes.
is about the corrections officers. Now, what do you specifically call it? Protest?
I think it's an act of desperation.
Yeah.
You've got, and I've got friends that are in both Elmira and Five Points and Groveland, and what we see is they've been pushed to the point of desperation where this is the only, I think most of them feel their union isn't taking care of them. Obviously, the state has turned their back on them.
Clearly.
And I think I brought this up on this before. I had an Army general tell me one time, morale's simple. You got to have an important job. You got to have the tools and training to do that important job. And then you've got to have the support of the people that send you to do that important job.
Right.
There's no more important job than correction officer. They don't have the tools and training at the state level that even we have at the county level. And they obviously don't have the support of the people that are sending them to do that job. That's a problem, and it's put them in a place of desperation. They're working 24-hour, they're mandated 24 hours.
How is that even possible?
And their union hasn't stopped it.
That's what it almost seems illegal. I mean, if my boss told me,
Yeah.
you got to go on the air for 24 hours straight,
Yeah.
I think I'd be calling the labor department, wouldn't you?
I thought you'd say, don't threaten me with a good time.
No, yeah. I could do it. Don't worry, I could do it.
No, but it's true, and we face that at the county level. We're supposed to have 75 full-time correction officers. We're right now, I think, 14 down out of that group. So people are working doubles a lot, and they're working a ton of overtime, and they're getting ordered to work overtime at least a couple times a week, which is nothing close to what the state COs are getting ordered to do. But we see the fallout, and I'd like to correct something on the HALT Act too. Yeah. It doesn't say that what it says is you can't. It attacks putting people alone. No one does that.
Right.
We segregate. We never put them in by themselves in a little hole
in the ground.
Right.
That's
what
what they're trying to paint that picture.
Yes, that's what it's been represented as. But what it is you have segregated housing for disciplinary issues,
right,
where it limits the amount of time they have interaction with other inmates because they get into fights and assaults, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what the HALT Act has eliminated, is that ability to remove the most dangerous from the rest of the population.
Isn't it interesting? I was talking with Phil Palmasano about this last week. There's a HALT Act for
solitary confinement.
Okay, HALT Act.
My brain froze for a second.
That's kind of obviously made it much more unsafe in the prisons.
Oh, it is.
Just like bail reform in the streets. It's like they're not happy until the law has their hand tied and the criminals are the ones that are being
correct. We're treating. And that's been across the board for the last 5 years. We're treating our correction officers as if they're the problem, not the people that are convicted of felonies that are in prison. Those folks are in prison because they've proven they can't function in society.
Right.
Let's support our correction officers, and if we don't think they're doing things right, let's give them the training and the tools to do it right.
Right.
And that's what we're not doing at the state level.
And you talk about morale. I mean, you have the HALT Act, you talk 24 hours, just the safety issues with it. None of us are that sharp after 24 hours staying up.
No.
And you have to do a very stressful,
even
high-demand
after
job.
16 hours.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I've worked 16-hour shifts on the road, and you're whooped.
Yeah.
And you're not sharp.
And then you've got you can't even count down. Look forward to the countdown because 24 hours is just too long.
Yeah. How do you do that?
And you look at last week, probably the coldest week of the year, and they went out and said enough's enough.
Yeah.
You've got to really pat them on
nothing
the back for
but
saying
mad
enough.
Respect for what they're doing, and for the fact that they're standing up. Obviously, I can identify with standing up for what's right and doing the right thing.
Right.
And I believe that's exactly what they're doing, and the state needs to figure out how they're going to right this ship. And once again, we're the only state in the union that has this issue.
Of course.
And you look at the homeless, everybody says, where are all the homeless coming from? Well, we're going to kick another 22,000 out of state prison.
Yeah. Yeah.
The first stop they have is at local DSS to get housing.
Yeah. Did you see that Hochul wants to close 5 more prisons?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'll ask this question.
That's her solution, apparently.
Yeah. Well, that's like Phil always brings it up. That's her solution.
Yeah.
is to close the prisons and make it even less safe. And I got so many questions about Hochul when we come back. So let's take a break. I can't run late. I told myself already. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and we're in that studio with the sheriff. A lot of nice comments, and I was telling you off the air, I don't write these myself. These are just these are very nice people that happen to like the show. So first off, well, how about this one? This goes back to the Elon Musk email. I'd like to see an email sent to the 340-year-old that still works at the IRS and see if that person responds. That's a good point. I would be curious of Sheriff Allard's thoughts on the corrections officer strike in Elmira. Well, we kind of mentioned that, and we're going to continue to talk about that. Good morning, Frank. Stay sane, Sheriff Allard. Thank you for that comment.
Must be somebody that knows me.
Yeah. And this one's super nice. Thank God for people like Jim Allard and Frank Acomb. They're helping to keep this region a great place to live and off the nasty list of places to live. That's nothing me. That's all you.
Nice.
I actually threw my name in that one. No, back to corrections officers. There's a really good piece. And we know all the numbers because Phil can recite them in his sleep. You know that.
Yep.
So we know all the numbers, but there's a really good piece at the New York Post today that said they don't think that they couldn't even believe that Governor Hochul bungled this up as bad as she did.
Right.
Even with her track record. But say what you want about Cuomo. Cuomo,
easy now.
I know, but he was ruthless.
He was.
With her, she tries to play so many sides that it ends up leading to failure.
She doesn't lead.
Yeah.
There's no leadership at the state level right now.
No. You're right. Thank you for stopping me on that, by the way.
Well, it's a ship headed towards the rocks, and nobody's at the wheel.
Yeah, because what is she doing right now? She sent out a quote unquote clear message, but then didn't follow up on any of it.
Correct.
There's more talk about her lieutenant governor, which is kind of interesting, right? Leaving the campaign than her talking about the corrections officers, and this is just going to grow.
Well, not only is it going to grow, but each and every one of these correction officers has a family. Mm-hmm. They have lives. Yeah. I mean, everything that's going on affects them. And when you look at, and you've heard me speak about wellness, when you look at the PTSD associated with this, and you look at the cumulative effect on the corrections community, it's no secret that the average law enforcement officer's life expectancy is 15% lower than the average civilian, and that the numbers are typically within 5 years of retirement, you're suffering some major health issue. What do we think this is doing to those correction officers and their families that are living through this strike, and that are living through the 24-hour mandatory sticks and all of these things that are going on? And it's not rocket science to fix it.
No.
And it surely isn't the job of the National Guard.
No, not at all. And you even go back to something as simple as when Phil Parmesan talked about it, but when she could close a prison with 90 days notice. So you're working as a corrections officer, you've got your whole family living in, let's say, Elmira.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, oh, sorry, we're closing this.
You've been there for 15, 20 years.
Yeah. And 90 days isn't long enough to make any plans.
No.
And to move. So now you've got the stress of the job, 24 hours, you're not seeing your family, and now there's the potential at any moment getting that phone call that you either have to uproot your family or take a different job.
Well, and again, the whole perspective is one of complete and utter disrespect for these correction officers who do literally put their lives on their line, on the line when they're at work. And we're going to ignore that and again, treat them as if they're the problem instead of the solution.
Yeah.
It's the same with the green light law, with immigration here in New York State. And it's so many policies that come out of Albany that treat law enforcement in general as the problem instead of the solution, instead of investing in the solution.
Yeah, because if you even look at it when Hochul was talking about involuntary commitment for people. Do you remember Carl Hastie comes out and says, nah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's
we're not going to do that.
There's not even conversations on this type of stuff. But when it comes to corrections officers, it's perfect for Hochul because this is what they think in Albany. They don't have to see any of them. Is that walls around them, and that's why these protests are shaking them because they see that these are real people.
Well, and this started over a week and a half ago at Collins Correctional, which is in Governor Hochul's backyard.
Yeah.
It's in Erie County, and that started with a riot there, and then the strikes went. But if you look at, especially in Erie County, you've got a lot of state COs that live and work there, and that's where she's from.
Right.
And she's turned her back on those folks. And she's turned her back on the hundreds of thousands of people that work not just in the state prison system, but also in the county jail systems.
Right.
With the HALT Act and with all of these onerous laws that they've come out, again, treating the correction officers as if they're the problem instead of the solution.
And isn't it nice, because I know you had this happen with everything going on in the county, the outpouring
Yes.
from the community. I mean, you see the videos, you see people stopping by, dropping off donuts, pizza.
Yep.
They've got a ton of food, wood for their burning barrels.
That's what a friend of mine works up to 5 Points, and he said that the Seneca County sheriffs took them a truckload of wood on day one.
Isn't that great?
Firewood for their barrels. And I was like, good on them. I saw Sheriff Akshar from Broome County, who used to be a state senator, Akshar, down visiting the folks at Elmira the other day, and good on him.
Yes.
Good on him. And we hire a ton. You know, I've got over 20 retired COs that work for us, state correction officers that work for us in retirement, and they're just, when I talk to them, they're just baffled how we could get to this state.
And that's really it. When you have people being interviewed saying, I don't care if I lose my job anymore, this has to stop.
Correct.
You know they've reached the boiling point. And
It's desperation.
It is.
Complete and total desperation.
Also, it's been a long time since I've seen a burning barrel.
I know.
It's kind of fun when I first started. I like the pit. We're great, and we have such a great viewership here in general. But we had a lot of corrections officers that watch this program, and they were sending us pictures, and the solidarity there is
to me, they're
unmistakable.
Heroes. They are absolute heroes.
I couldn't agree more. All right, we're going to take another short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and joining me in that studio is Sheriff Allard. All right, comment from a viewer. Good morning. Well, hey, good morning. I asked my husband why Trump doesn't step in the corrections officer situation. He said Trump's trying to have basically Hochul oust herself in a way.
Right.
Her Hochul. I don't know. Can he get involved? I don't even know how that would work.
He can always comment.
Yeah.
He can always comment.
That is true.
And I wish he would, because it's ridiculous. Again, I think about the National Guard going in. When I went in the Army, I was 18.
Yeah.
Fresh out of high school, right off the farm.
Yeah.
Can you imagine taking that kid and putting him in a state prison and saying, with no training, you got to go guard these folks that have killed people?
Yeah. They didn't sign up for that.
No. And it's so irresponsible.
And do they have to follow, I wonder, the HALT Act? I
would assume so.
You would
They're
assume,
state employees.
But who knows?
Yeah.
You don't know, because they're not trained for that.
No, that's what I'm saying. That is a recipe for disaster.
All right, so I want to talk about this, because we haven't talked. We talked when you went to the state sheriff's conference, but I don't think we've talked about the national conference. How was that?
That was awesome.
Yeah.
It really was. What a change.
Yeah.
What a change.
I'm sure.
Tom Holman, the border czar, came in and presented to us.
I got to hear more about that in a second.
And he... It was like my dad became the border czar, because he said, I have a job to do. The president gave me a job to do. I'm going to do that job. You know, he's
like a rock star in the
He's from upstate New York.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah, he's up from, he grew up in West Carthage.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So he knows our area, and he knows our northern border. And that was one of his messages, was we're going to make a difference on that northern border also. And for places, the sanctuary cities like Ithaca, that don't play ball and let people go.
Right.
He said, we're going to come in, and we're not only going to get that person, but we're going to get 5 of his friends that are here illegally too, and we'll take them all. And that's the way we'll deal with sanctuary cities.
Well, I'm encouraged too that it seemed like for a long time no one was talking about the northern border.
Right.
And then we start to learn the numbers, and it's crazy.
It's scary.
Yeah.
It's scary. It is.
Yeah, well, so that must have been kind of neat to see him.
It was very educational and very inspirational.
Yeah. Anything else that happened at the sheriff's conference?
Yeah, we met with, so I was part of a delegation of 4 sheriffs, New York sheriffs, that met with legislators on the Hill. And I met with the Orange County Sheriff, the Rensselaer County Sheriff, and the Chautauqua County Sheriff. And I met with both of our senators, Gillibrand and Schumer.
Okay. Met
with Congressman Langworthy, Congressman Ryan from Hudson Valley, and Congressman Lawler from the Hudson Valley area.
Well, that's the name we've been talking about quite a bit, because there's some speculation there that he didn't let anything
He wouldn't commit when we were there.
No.
He wouldn't say. He told the Orange County Sheriff, he said, when I make my decision, I'll let you know.
Okay.
Yeah. but
If
seemed
not,
like
he's
a very
trying it.
genuine. Seemed like a very genuine individual. I liked him.
And I want to point out, since we have a second here, Congressman Langworthy has also been very outspoken on the northern border.
Yes.
He was, I'm not going to say ahead of the curve because Homeland and people like that were talking about it before, but he jumped right on board and said something needs to be done.
Yeah. Well, and when the Border Patrol presented to us in 2024, it was, I can't remember the numbers, but it was almost 400 known and suspected terrorists came across the northern border compared to less than 100 in the southern border. Wow. And it's because what they're doing is flying from Mexico City to Toronto and then just bringing them right over, or to Montreal.
Well, because when everybody was focused on the southern border, there was a window of opportunity.
Yeah.
So that sounds like a very helpful conference.
It was, and obviously I went to a lot of classes. That's the best part of it is I went to quite a few classes on officer wellness and on scams, and went to one for elderly scams by the Treasury Department, which was very helpful, that I brought back to Triad here in Steuben County. All that information and speaking with sheriffs from across the nation is very helpful in that we all have the same issues.
Yeah.
And we're all facing the same challenges, and to hear how different folks address those challenges, it's very helpful.
And the elderly scam is interesting because we've dealt with that so often in this area.
Yes,
and how do you keep up on that?
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. We meet, one of our lieutenants, Lieutenant Locke, meets with Triad every time they have a meeting, and we talk about ways to meet with different senior citizen groups and share that information. But the trouble is that as folks age, especially when they age in place, things that seem too good to be true, which really are too good to be true, it seems like a great idea to provide for their children and grandchildren.
Yeah.
And then they end up losing vast amounts of money because of it.
And you have scenarios like with all the recent natural disasters where people, isn't that sick?
It is.
But
and
that's
the
why
majority of that money is leaving the country.
Oh, yeah.
In the scams. It's going to Eastern Europe, it's going to Northern Africa, and it's leaving here. And it's a big impact on our economy.
Did they talk about the use of AI and how much?
Yeah.
So is that becoming a real big concern in the sheriff's office and just in general?
It is, because there's a couple things. We just had a scam not too long ago where it was, this is Sergeant so-and-so from the Steuben County Sheriff's Office. If you don't pay this money by Venmo or gift card by this date, we will be at your house with a warrant. Wow. You missed your court date. And what really tipped folks off was the sergeant's name that they used in the scam was from Steuben County, Indiana. Sheriff's Office.
Oh, wow.
So that made that one a little bit easier.
Yeah.
But we've had it before.
But that means they're, quote unquote, doing research. They're just not getting it right. Wow.
And we've had it before where they've used actual names of sergeants of our agency and done that. They did one 2 years ago where our sergeant that's in charge of the sex offender program, they were contacting sex offenders and saying you had missed your registry dates and $500, or we're going to come get you. Wow. And that's a population that's going to send the money.
Sure. Yeah. Boy, isn't that interesting? And it's terrifying because, like you mentioned, we were talking specifically about elderly scams, but they're becoming so sophisticated. It's not even just elderly.
Right.
I mean, we've seen people that you would think would be up on technology that it's costing them thousands of times.
Right. When you get the text that says you didn't pay your Easy Pass.
Yeah. Something as simple as that.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? Well, we got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horsets. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corner. We got the sheriff in the studio. All right. Question from a comment, or comment from a viewer. Question, whatever, you get it. I'd like to ask Sheriff Allard, what can citizens do to try and stop the madness? What he has gone through is wrong on so many levels, and the treatment of the corrections officers is so disturbing to me.
Yes.
How can we address this?
Be involved, register to vote, be involved in your local government, but also be involved and make sure you vote for your state government.
Yeah.
And take someone with you to vote. I think, our power is in our ability to elect folks that are going to serve the public, not try to make the public serve them. And that's where our power lies. So become involved in your local politics. And I know that it's unfortunate that our county is one of the few that has all of their meetings during the daytime when most people are working. There's definite opinions on that. But be involved. Most of them are on Zoom. You can watch them after the fact even.
Yeah.
Most of the committee meetings. Be involved and contact your legislator and let them know what you like and what you don't like.
Yeah, and that's why on this program we made it such an important point to have as many of the candidates on. And it can, turn some viewers off because they'll say, well, I'm not in Corning. Why do I care? But where do you get the information if you don't?
Right.
Because anymore with the media landscape, there's not too many opportunities.
Oh, and this Friday night is the Lincoln Day dinner up in Hornell.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Kind of the biggest Republican deal in the county.
The kickoff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
well,
I'll be at that.
It's hard to believe that, well, for the people that don't pay attention, that petitions start today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
In all this beautiful weather.
I know. Thank you.
Thanks
you, Albany.
for doing that. But it does seem like people, and going back to what we were saying earlier, the outpouring from the community has been so great. I think people are starting to get fed up.
Yeah.
Because like you said, or what I was saying, with bail reform, it's affecting our public safety. With the halt, it's affecting public safety that we don't know.
Public safety,
but
believe me.
Yeah. But also, even in the prisons, when Phil rattles off those numbers, not just the inmate on inmate assaults, but the inmate on staff assaults increasing that much, and yet you still have people defending the halt
we've
act.
seen a huge uptake in inmate on inmate assaults. And we actually charge them with a felony when they do that to try and discourage it. But when you look at the halt act's just one small piece of the puzzle.
Right.
They passed a regulation 2 years ago that any pregnant female can't be shackled when she's transported. Well, we had Billy Joe Ribble not that long ago, who at 7 months pregnant kidnapped a mother and a baby at knife point and forced her to drive her across from Pennsylvania back into New York, and is doing federal prison time now. So this notion that we seem to be in this notion that every person that's in jail is this poor person that just needs a hug.
Right.
And they're in jail and prison because they can't function in society without hurting other people.
Right. And that's what the New York Post was saying this morning when it comes to the solitary, saying this is just to help them behave.
Yes.
If they behave, none of this is ever an issue.
And it's to protect the rest of the population from their outbursts.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think this leads to something, the combination of all this public safety, that Hochul, I mean, if she's going to have, it looks like maybe 2 primary challengers at least. And look, Lee Zeldin did great running on public safety.
Yes. And I think now is the time for a Republican candidate to step forward and chart a path forward.
We talked about that last time.
And show this is where we are. These are the steps we need to take to get to a functional government at the state level.
Yeah.
And this is what we need to do to support and train. When you look at as ugly as the Marcy incident was, and horrible to see, and just completely disturbing to watch, that's the effect of not having the tools and the training to do the job correctly.
Yeah.
And who carries that burden? The governor does, because all of that comes directly from that office.
And the governor again has done such a poor job in handling this. What is the answer for that? I don't think she has an answer.
She doesn't.
She's so, I know I say it a lot on this program that she's not ready for prime time, but that's what it seems like. You've got a person that didn't run for governor. She was lieutenant, and she gets in there. Yep. Now she has run. Yep. I don't think she's got it.
Well, this is the time to show if she does. This is the time to be a leader.
Yeah.
And right now we haven't seen any leadership. All we've seen is more coercion.
Right. But if you think of the progressives in her party, they don't want to see a change to the HALT Act.
No. We met with the Sheriff's Association, met with several of the assembly people last year. We made a conscious effort to do that. And the one that's been the architect of the HALT Act and several others said, look, my goal is zero incarceration.
Right.
Period.
Right.
I don't care how we get there, and I don't care what it does. It's just completely irrational.
It is completely
thought.
irrational. And I think that's why people are watching this so closely. That's why the community is coming out and bringing coffee and donuts, because they're saying, this is wrong. We support you. Albany may not support you, but we're going to support you, because we understand when people start hearing the numbers about how many hours they're working, hearing how that obviously is affecting their family life, their social life, and then you
and
add
their health.
And their health.
Everything across the board.
And then they wonder why things, and this isn't an excuse, but think about when after 16 hours, but let's say 24 hours, I'm pretty grumpy, you know? So then you have a job that is high stress, and you've got people that you are overseeing that do not like you.
One of the primary rules I have is that tired and frustrated law enforcement officers make bad decisions.
Yeah.
And what do we need? What can we do to make them either less tired or less frustrated in their workplace so they don't make those bad decisions?
Right.
And when you have people working 24s and treating them as less than and telling them that they're not worth what they're being paid or not worth anything, they're going to make bad decisions.
No,
it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
No, and that's what I was saying off the air. Sometimes it just takes a pat on the back, and it's such a morale booster. And, you know, and it's not anything, but just, hey, you're doing a good job. We know this is a stressful job.
Yes. It is a very stressful job.
And instead you have Hochul and Albany working against you. I mean, that's we've joked in the past, but when budget season comes up, we're all terrified to see what's next.
Right.
You never know what the governor's going to propose. Just like I mentioned this morning, closing 5 more prisons.
I tell our road patrol, I say, 15 to 20% of your time is dealing with the worst of the worst.
Yep.
In society, if you're a correction officer, 100% of your time is dealing with the worst and the worst.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it.
In society that no one else wants to deal with. So if you don't have vast respect for what they're doing and the job they're doing that no one else wants to do, something wrong with you.
Well, and how long have we been talking where there's such a need for corrections officers? And then when we see these stories, no wonder there's a need for corrections officers.
Yeah, who would be dumb enough to do that?
That's what it's starting to sound like. Because again, at the end of the day, Hochul has shown that she's not respecting them and
not valuing them.
That's a great way of putting it. Not valuing them. And I don't want to keep belaboring this point, but there is a reason these men and women went out on the coldest days of the year and said, enough is enough. I don't care if I'm going to lose my job. We've got to, and what they're doing is ultimately they're doing it for the betterment of their coworkers, saying we want to do this, and even if I'm out of a job, let's correct this.
And it's also for the betterment of the incarcerated folk.
Yeah,
because again, they're not feeling safe.
Yep.
You've got one correction officer covering 60 people in a dorm.
Yeah. No.
I'm not feeling safe.
No. We got to take our last break, and then we're wrapping up the show. This is going quick.
Yeah,
it always does. I know it always does. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back in the Hesselson studio with the sheriff. We're wrapping up. Why? This, like I said, it goes quick. First, though, this is a reminder, because it caught so many people off guard last time you were on, the boater safety course.
Yes.
Everybody has to have it.
If you're going to operate a motorized vessel in navigable waterway in the state of New York.
You've done this a few times.
Yep. Then, yes, you'll have to have the boater safety certificate or the Coast Guard comparable.
Okay. And how do they start that process?
So we're still holding them monthly at the sheriff's office for free, or you can go online with New York State Parks Recreation and Historic Preservation website.
Okay.
And you can pay, I think it's like $40 to take it online.
Okay. But that's that's in your home, right?
Yes.
You can do that. Okay.
Yeah.
How busy do you think you're going to be with those courses as the weather breaks?
Well, so we started last March doing them monthly and advertising them, because so many people are like, holy cow.
Yeah.
I was one of them. I got mine last year.
Yeah.
And, I've been driving boats for a few days.
Well, that's why I wanted you to say it, because people think that I'm lying to them when I say it, or that I'm misinformed. They'll go, that's not true. I've been driving a boat for yes, take your boater safety course.
Get your boater safety. And it's a good course.
Yeah.
And, I learned a couple things in it, even after driving boats for 40 plus years.
Sure.
So it's a good course. And it's worth the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, before we go, because I think we've talked about some really good things here and making some accomplishments, but it's always nice to kind of end on a positive note. What's going on a positive note?
So this March, in 2 weeks, a week and a half, the March Public Safety, we're going to be commending 2 correction officers and 5 deputies. The 2 correction officers saved a inmate that was trying to kill himself and trying to asphyxiate himself, and they saved him, and he's doing well. We had 2 different life-saving events with our deputy EMTs, where cardiac arrest, where when they arrived, no heartbeat, and by the time they got him in the ambulance, breathing and beating, and survived, both of them. A lot of times we have ones that don't survive. They survived 2 different events, which was really the paramedics. I know when the paramedic calls me and says, hey, I got to tell you about what your guys did last night.
Yeah, right.
It was a pretty cool thing. And then we also have another deputy who, in dealing with an emotionally disturbed child, the parent and the school official took it upon themselves to write letters alerting me how well that person did. So we're going to be doing a bunch of commendations next month for the good work that our folks are doing in the communities.
How nice is that? Because let's face it, a lot of people are quick to write letters to complain.
Right.
For any job.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Yeah.
You should see my text right now. No, I'm just kidding. But so it's nice when someone takes the time out of their day to say, you know what, thank you.
And I tell our deputies when we have the full staff meeting that, because of my age and how long I've been doing this, they're like my kids.
Oh, yeah, I'm
a
sure.
lot of the
Yeah.
time. So it's like when somebody says, boy, I just want to tell you, your child, was super,
amazing.
Yeah, they were so courteous and so polite, and you get that same feeling. I do at least.
So that must be a special part of your job with the accommodations.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. And when I see, because we do a lot of training and we do a lot of investment in our employees, and when I see them shine like that, it makes you feel like it's all worthwhile.
When you mention that investment in your employees, I'm shocked because I always say how I like the newsletter, but you've got those guys running ragged, those men and women.
They're busy.
I didn't know there's that many safety courses and courses that they have to take.
Well, busy hands are happy
Good
hands.
thing. Yes, but it is impressive. If people haven't seen the newsletter, they should.
Well, and again, I've always said that professionalism is achieved through training.
Yes.
And only through an abundance of training can you have an abundance of professionalism. And when we do these accommodations, that's proof of there's proof that the professionalism is working.
Absolutely. Final comment on our way out the door. What a great interview. Always welcome the sheriff. Isn't that nice?
It is nice.
It's nice.
Thank you.
It is nice that your wife watches. All right.
I thought you were going to say it was my mother.
There we go. Either way. All right, that does it today. Thanks so much for giving us so much time, Sheriff, and let's do it again soon. Keep us updated on it.
Thanks for having me on, Frank. I appreciate it.
All right. We'll be back tomorrow morning starting at 6 a.m. with Frankly Speaking, only on Big Fox.